This Wednesday morning, I awoke the same way that I always do, miserable and exhausted. But when I remembered that it was Wednesday, I immediately perked up because that meant a new episode of What If and the release of Star Wars Visions. I imagine a lot of people had similar experiences that morning, rushing downstairs, feeling like a kid again, like Saturday morning cartoons had come early this week. I also imagine that whatever remained of their spark of childhood wonder died a little on the inside upon watching the latest episode of What If. Sucks to be those guys, though, because my spark is brighter than ever because I loved every minute of them. This episode of What If is the perfect vehicle for its plot. It lets the MCU and its characters cut loose and answers questions that we've always wondered about, and it isn't afraid to make fun of itself.
Party's over, pal.
Yeah, maybe here's a thought. How about you just buzz off?
We get to see the two most powerful Avengers going head-to-head over a party that goes out of control. Loki in his true form, Fury gets knocked unconscious for the sake of a joke. It's implied that Thor parties so hard that he ends civilizations. They use our world's most prominent landmarks for party tricks. Thor and Jane make it work. Darcy gets married to a sentient alien duck. It may not be plot-heavy, but neither is Project X, and that movie is endlessly rewatchable. For those of you who wanted What If to cover darker possibilities of the MCU that they never do in the movies, you got the majority of the episodes. I was under the impression that none of the episodes would be funny, but I was luckily mistaken. I also binged all of Star Wars Visions, and it was great too, but I've seen some hate for the episode Tatooine Rhapsody. That's too bad, because I really enjoyed it a lot. This is another episode that inspired me to make this video. In IGN's review of the series, they note multiple times that it's best to take breaks in between each episode, rather than binging it, because a lot of the episode's themes and ideas blend together and end up feeling samey. I believe them, but I was too excited not to. They were definitely right about the episodes being too similar sometimes, though. A lot of the episodes, despite their differences, feel really samey. That's why Tatooine Rhapsody stands out amongst the crowd. It takes things in a different direction. Instead of focusing on stylish action set pieces or over-the-top visuals, it relies on heart, characters, and music. This episode shows us another side of the Star Wars universe and gives us a great new original song. I can see it now. These episodes are going to be at the bottom of every ranked list, and fans are going to be livid on social media. That being said, I've seen more positivity than I would have expected. So instead, let's say these article writers for these companies with quotas to hit will be livid. They're going to complain about the tone and ridiculousness of these episodes. I imagine that most of the hate is going to come from the dissonance between expectations and reality, and how it compares to the other episodes. First off, leave your expectations out the door. Never believe the hype. Expectations are, 9 times out of 10, the quickest way to kill the fun. How many times have you gone into a movie, played a game, or turned on a show with high expectations only to be let down? Now think of a time when you stumbled into something with no prior knowledge and came out the other end incredibly impressed. Also think of those times when you went into something with low expectations only to be utterly surprised. Expectations are especially complicated when you're talking about anthologies. Each episode can be so vastly different that it's near impossible to compare them to one another. The only thing that an anthology promises is its basic premise and nothing more. I feel that an episode of an anthology only really fails if it doesn't deliver on the themes that bind the episodes together. In great anthologies of recent memory like Love, Death, and Robots and Black Mirror, each episode offers a different take on their respective themes. While everyone is going to have their favorites and least favorites, most of us could agree that the only episodes that were actually bad were the ones that did nothing of note with the premise. Episodes such as Rachel, Jack, and Ashley 2 makes an admirable attempt to say something meaningful about the future and present of the music industry, but ultimately falls short because it spends too much time focusing on the least interesting aspects of the plot rather than the decidedly interesting premise. On the other hand, episodes such as Striking Vipers drum up notable fanfare with questions that still leave us pondering just how gay it might be to convince our IRL friends to fuck us online, and whether our partners would be cool with that.
I fucked a polar bear, and I still couldn't get you out of my mind. I can't help you. You wanna fuck Roxy again? I don't. You do. Just the best sex of my life.
If that thought just now made you uncomfortable at all, then you've got the right idea. I also want to talk about the Breather episodes. Breathers are lighthearted episodes that take place just before or after a major arc or particularly heavy episodes. Both Tatooine Rhapsody and Episode 7 of What If fit this criteria. This is especially true for What If now that I've seen Episode 8. Most people equate breather episodes to filler, and while there is a notable correlation between the two, not all breathers are filler, and not all filler are breathers. I'll save my opinions on filler for another video, but in the meantime, breather episodes are important because they let us see a different side of something that we already love. They remind us that no matter how edgy or serious a series can get, there is always a lighter side to it all. The characters are still human, most of the time, and can't be on edge all the time. The fate of the world may be at stake, but everyone deserves a vacation sometimes. I think that these breather episodes really speak to our nature as human beings. They have something to teach us about how to read between the lines and reminds us that there is always a new hope underneath it all. Even their namesake, Breather, is telling the audience what needs to be done. Just have some fun with this, alright? You deserve it. You may not realize it, but breather episodes are fairly common. Avatar: The Last Airbender, for example, is full of these episodes, and they often come just before some of the best episodes or arcs within the series. Even the weakest ones do a great job at building character and fleshing out the world by allowing characters to drop their guard to reveal the humanity underneath and giving more attention to aspects of the world that we rarely think about. The episode The Ember Island Players comes just before the 4-part ending special where Aang must finally face the Fire Lord and is a very laid-back episode. The ending literally begins with the Aang deciding to take a breather from training to watch a propaganda play about themselves. Instead of cramming for the upcoming test of their lives, they decide that the best course of action is to take a break. This actually turns out to be a running theme in the season, with other episodes such as The Beach. The episode serves as an in-universe parody of the Aang's journey so far from the perspective of the Fire Nation. It hilariously flanderizes all of the characters that we've come to love, reopening old wounds and making a mockery of their journey.
Well, I'm trying to get it out of my mind and into my mouth. I'm starving.
This is pathetic. My jokes are way funnier than this.
There's only a hint of seriousness before the end of the episode when the Aang is killed by the Fire Nation in the final battle. As you can see, even in series as highly regarded and complex as Avatar, there is always time for a much-needed break before it all comes to an end. Another issue that causes people to dislike breather episodes is the fact that most people equate grittiness to goodness. These people imply that everything has to be dark to be meaningful. They're convinced that darkness brings with it a greater degree of humanity. I think this is because of the fundamental way that we tell stories. Every story is centered on conflict. Man versus machine, man versus nature, etc. It's always the patriarchy, man versus something. Because conflict is so crucial, the more of it you have, often, the better the work is perceived. A man struggling to control his darker side to protect the people that he loves is typically seen as more well-rounded and developed than a millionaire in perfect health with a steady relationship and not a care in the world. We want to see people struggle because it reminds us of ourselves. But even though we like to think that life is a constant uphill battle, everyone has to take a break at some point. By only depicting the complications, we perpetuate the myth that life is a constant struggle. We internalize the struggle that we see on TV, project it back out, and then that's all that we can see. These episodes remind us that
life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Personally, I feel fortunate to live in a time with not just one, but 2 popular anthology series based on billion-dollar franchises. They dare to be different, and that's enough for me. The cultural zeitgeist is constantly claiming that it wants something different, something more original and inventive. If you claim you want something different, then you have to be open to something different. Otherwise, you'll keep getting the same stuff they always give us. I obviously can't make anyone like these episodes, and if you don't because you want more of the same, or they just don't appeal to you, I won't judge you. I'll be the first to admit that I've never felt superhero fatigue. Even though I love to get something different from time to time, I can appreciate more of the same too. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? I only hope that I can help expand your horizons.